Good morning. It is 10:31 a.m. on Sunday, July 26th, 2020. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. I've actually been up for a little bit, fussing around with Rocket. But today is Sunday, so that means I'm continuing my rewatch of The Legend of Korra with Season 2, Episode, which one is it? Is it 6? Hang on. Fifth, Season 2, Episode 5, Peacekeepers. Now, before I get into the discussion of this episode in particular, I want to direct your attention to two essays that I saw posted on Twitter yesterday from Jeanette Ng, and that's spelled Jeannetteeng. And the titles of these two essays, The Inescapable Whiteness of Avatar, The Legend of Korra, and Its Uncomfortable Implications. And then the other one is Korra's Defining Villains and What Does It Mean to Be the Avatar. Now, these two essays are critical of Legend of Korra, and I nonetheless, despite... Rocket's chewing on stuff. So, I really like The Legend of Korra. I think there are a lot of things to like about it, but that doesn't make it perfect. And I think these essays highlight some of the things about it that maybe are, don't appeal to everyone. Perhaps some failings in the storytelling and so on. And so, like, in particular, the first one, talking about the inescapable whiteness of Korra. Like, obviously, like, the characters visually are pretty diverse, right? We're not talking just about, like, oh, let's say all the characters are white. That's not what the essay is about. It's more focused on the idea that whereas the first series, The Last Airbender, seems to take place in a variety of very culturally diverse locales, that doesn't seem as true in The Legend of Korra. We've essentially taken this whole world of very diverse cultures and made it all into 1920s New York. Like, even when we spend time in the Southern Water Tribe, it doesn't feel that different culturally. And in particular, I think one of the things that is very apt criticism of Legend of Korra is that it's very focused on people at high levels of power and not the average, little person. Not the people who don't have power, the ordinary folks. And I think that that's really true because, Korra is not only the Avatar, but Tanrak is her, dad. He's the chief of the Southern Water Tribe, but would have been the chief of the Northern also if he hadn't been exiled, and that makes her a princess too, and then the whole thing. And then we focus on, Mako and Bolin. Maybe they aren't the, they don't come from power or anything, but, they were elevated to being, high-powered athletes, and then one becomes a cop, and the other becomes a movie star. And so we're like, and then there's a lot of focus on, the legacies of all of these powerful, so Lin is the daughter of Toph. We have Tenzin's the daughter of, the son of Aang, and so on. General Iroh's the son of Zuko, and the president, and like those, that's the level we're operating on, as opposed to Last Airbender, which largely focused the Aang gang running around rallying the common folk in support of this enemy to fight the status quo, whereas Korra, it's largely about, well, the status quo is mostly pretty good, right? So we mostly have to stop the people who keep trying to wreck everything, which kind of makes it more like American and, white, right? Like that's kind of the idea. So I don't want to say that I 100% agree with everything in those essays. I think some of them are, more strongly stated than I agree with, but I feel like it's a valid point to address, and I think it's interesting to discuss those things and to compare, because in particular what they're saying is like that Last Airbender is one of the only times that they felt that a piece of Western media had really resonated with them in their culture, and then Legend of Korra came out and didn't anymore, and they want to talk about why. I think that's good. So with that said, I recommend you check out those essays, although, word of warning, they do contain spoilers for all 4 seasons if you haven't watched everything already. But now let's talk about this episode, Peacekeepers. And this is another, like, I'm remembering now why it is that season 2 just feels frustrating, because it really just has Korra in this state of being a little bit wrong sort of all the time. Not that that's not part of how her character works, that she's kind of just brash and impatient and... Rocket, what are you doing? He's anxious this morning for some reason. But so she is always, like, it becomes a thing in this show how all of the main villains kind of have a point. Like, maybe they're going about it the wrong way, or there's partially a hypocrite to one degree or another. But there's always an element of reality to what they want. Like, so, the only ones we've seen so far are Amon and Unalaq here, right? So, one, with Amon, right, the idea that, a society where some people have these special powers and other people don't can have a potential to become oppressive towards the people who don't have those powers, right? And the idea that it's not fair, it's not equal. Like, Amon had his own issues, but that cause that rallied a lot of people to his cause, like, even though he was essentially defeated by revealing that he's kind of a hypocrite about it, doesn't mean that all of those other people didn't have a point, right? And so one of the things that I feel like the show doesn't always take the time to highlight as much is the fact that President Raiko, like, the idea that the council, which was all benders, was dissolved and replaced by an elected president, Raiko, who is not a bender, they don't really highlight the idea that, even though Amon had to be stopped, that maybe the Equalists had a point and some changes need to be made. And so they kind of do it, but they kind of do it almost in the background without really ever talking about it. And I think that's maybe somewhat of a failing. And that's an example, actually, of what's talked about in the second essay I mentioned in terms of the villains, is that the show definitely wants it to be a thing, that Korra sort of learns a lesson from each of the villains. And I think that it's there, but they don't really ever talk about it. They kind of make it happen in the background, like they don't have time to deal with those things. You got to move on to the next thing, instead of actually spending time on the characterization and growth of the lead. But, anyway. And again, like, I don't want to be overcritical, because I love the show, but I think those are fair points. But in any case, let's move forward here. So, we have several different threads here again. So I think it's another frustrating thing to just constantly, we want to keep checking in on Tenzin and family because we like those characters. We want to follow up with what's going on, but having them be so separated inherently is going to make their stories not feel related, right? So eventually they all come back together, which feels like a relief, because it's frustrating here when they're all separated. Rocket, stop it. Okay. So in this one, in this season, what we have is Tenzin sort of having a little story beats with everybody. And Rocket. One moment, please. Rocket, no. No. Move. Move. My apologies, everyone. I am giving Rocket something else to chew on because I don't know if he's stressed or something, but there we go. Good boy. But, it's actually hilarious that what I was about to talk about is this storyline of Tenzin teaching Milo how to be a good trainer. Because to some extent, that's what was just happening with me and Rocket, is me having to not allow him to continue a bad behavior that I've told him to stop. So, yeah. So all I did, if anyone is curious, is I took the thing he was chewing on, I sprayed some bitter apple on it, and then gave him something else to chew on. But yeah, so it's a relatively lightweight lesson here. Teaching Milo how to be a better trainer for the lemurs. But obviously the real intent of the lesson is not so much about Milo as much as it is about Tenzin and the recognition, like the lesson that Milo observes is like, it's lonely being the alpha. And Tenzin kind of realizing that himself. And then when he does his job so well that Milo just becomes this crazy master trainer, which is obviously a comic beat. But there's a moment to which Tenzin is looking on at his success and feeling like, what did I do here? Like, there needs to be a balance of this, because to some extent, he's just doing what I told him to do, and yet now that is making him less like the funny, crazy little kid that I love, and more into something I don't even recognize that's actually maybe like me. Right? So obviously that's all about Tenzin and less about Milo, really. But I think it's a nice little beat, and so that's really all I think we have to say about him. So back in Republic City, we have, Korra and company have traveled back here, partly because it's returning home for pretty much everybody, but also with this interest of Korra is feeling like, my family is under siege, the North is an invading army, we need the Republic United Forces to help. But that turns out to be complicated. So Varric continues to be delightful to watch on TV because he is so silly, doing all of his crazy stuff with Julie and his idea generating thing of eating a hot chili pepper and then hanging upside down. It's all super silly and fun to deal with. And then ultimately the whole thing of making these propaganda films with Bolin as Nuktuk, and to use real footage of what was going on at the polls to make into a propaganda film. I think I love all of that stuff. And of course, there's an additional element to what he has going on that we'll talk more about later, once it's revealed in the story. But okay, well, I feel like by saying it like that and then going on to talk about the other things that happened, let's not mess around with that. So again, I'm going to spoil something that happens later in the season if you haven't watched it yet. But I think this episode kind of hints at it anyway, which is to say that the bombing of the Southern Water Tribe Cultural Center, which is used by both Korra and Varric as like, look, see, proof that the North is the aggression here. Is actually, it's a false flag by Varric, meant to curry support, right? But none of that's working because the president feels like this feels like an internal Water Tribe thing that isn't something that the Republic needs to send its military for. And, honestly, I feel like that's probably right. Like, we understand why Korra wants that, but we haven't really seen, like, the North is doing some stuff, but, like, is it meriting sending what's essentially a foreign military to break them out. Like it's hard to say. Like it's complicated, right? And I think you could make the argument either way. But of course, Korra is frustrated because it's her family on the line, right? And she's finding that Mako once again is not giving her the validation that she's looking for him, which again is not entirely fair to ask her to always for her to ask him to always agree with everything she wants to say or do, and then to just get furious and rage at him when he doesn't agree. Like the point is that's not a healthy relationship, and the fact that they break up in this episode, like, you know. We've talked a little bit about Korra and Mako before, and I maintain that it is crazy to me. Okay, I shouldn't say that. I never felt like Korra and Mako belonged together. That never felt right to me, not even for a minute. Like if anything, when we had last season the whole triangle thing with her and Mako and Bolin, I felt like between the two of them, she fits better with Bolin than with Mako. And it's Buffy and Riley and Angel all over again. But in any case, we just have Mako feeling torn between loyalty to his girlfriend and understanding where she's coming from, but also feeling like she's being unreasonable and he has other responsibilities and he feels like she's about to make a big mistake. So I can relate to where he's coming from in what he does here, but at the same time, while we can understand and relate to both sides of that argument, we can also understand why maybe they shouldn't be boyfriend and girlfriend then, right? In any case, we have Korra, not getting the support she's looking for from the president, trying to go behind his back and arrange, like, with General Iroh to, like, maybe accidentally get involved, which, honestly, it seems weird to me how on board with that Iroh seems to be up until when Raiko shows up to shut it down. That felt off to me. Like, it's one thing for him to say, my mom is the current Fire Lord and maybe she would be willing to support where the president won't. It's another thing for him to say, yes, I'm going to directly undercut what my president has already said he wants in order to support this cause in a way that would absolutely get me court-martialed. Yeah, I don't know. That always felt off. So, to be sure, once he's directly ordered, he absolutely won't. But I feel like he should have been less supportive even before that. But so, of course, what we're really dealing with here is just we've got a mystery of, okay, who really blew up the cultural center, and Mako's on the case there, even though he's not getting much support. And, he's dealing with other corrupt cops. We also have the reveal that with Unalaq sending Desna and Eska off to capture Korra, that he does still actually need her to open the northern portal. And they said, but you told Korra that you didn't need her. And he says, I told her what she needed to hear. And it's like, that's a little bit too much 3D 12-dimensional chess, I think. But whatever. So the point is that we now know he does need her, and he orders Esna to bring her alive. Eska, rather. And so, we finish this episode with them trying to capture Korra, but she is attacked and then swallowed by a big dark spirit. Oh no! What's going to happen? We will find out next week when we talk about episode 6, The Sting. So, in the meantime, I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.